All right. Well, again, Mark, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to show up here. I mean, it means a lot to me. Got a couple questions for you. This is something that maybe a lot of people want to know a little bit more about you, but could you just tell us a little bit more about, you, yourself, and the dealership that you guys own, Houston Auto Sales?
So we're an independent dealership um, in Houston,
Mhm.
Texas,
Yep.
and I would say, I guess, mid-size operation.
Right.
We do about 50, 60 cars a month.
Okay.
Um, my relationship with you and my work with you is started regarding running a campaign for us so we can buy private party vehicles.
Right.
And we it's been successful. You've ran a good campaign so far. We're still, relatively. How long have you been doing this? 2 months, 3 months, something like that.
About 90 days. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So far it's been a success. We're working on kind of scaling it right now. That's like the next phase of the project. But
Right.
the initial phase was successful. You've been able to get us a good qualified leads um, that actually, are legitimate leads that answer the phone, real numbers, real leads answer the phone, and we've been buying. Uh, um, like I said, we haven't scaled the campaign yet, so the amount of leads that we've been getting is still um, not too big, but just from that small amount of leads we're getting, we're buying a lot of cars.
So
Uh,
like,
so
wow.
yeah, I mean, definitely, not trying to undermine what you're doing. On the other hand, I think you're doing a good job, and the money we've put in and we invested with you has paid back, definitely many folds.
Yep.
It's definitely been a good return on our investments, and I recommend what you've done with it. I mean, I recommend your work to any dealership that wants to do the same thing, or maybe a campaign for some other purpose.
Right.
But I'll talk about our experiences to buy cars. It's been successful, so I recommend your service to any dealership that wants to use you. Just don't use his service to buy cars in my zip code. Stay away from my zip code and
Stay
use his
out of
service.
that. Hey, you know what? Speaking of that, the Houston market, I mean, how would you define the Houston market? Is it a massive market? Is it an okay market? What would you say?
It's Houston market is a monster market and a monster competition too. It's one of those markets where it's definitely massive, and the competition is definitely massive. It's just one of those big markets that have a lot of opportunity but a lot of competition, and there's no room for green peace. There's no room for not knowing what you're doing and being, like, it's very cutthroat. There's a big opportunity, and if you know what you're doing, the prize, is the money's there, but it's pretty cutthroat and pretty competitive. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of competition. You got to pretty much know what you're doing if you want to make it
oh
out.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's no playing around.
Right, right. Okay, so one more question for you. Like before we actually started doing what we were doing, what was the problem that you were having? Like what was going on at that time before we even talked to each other
So there
that
was no problem per se, like a big problem. Well, I guess you can call it a problem, but so we're already been buying private party vehicles for a while now, and for us, this is a big
who was you
market
using?
this is a market that we want to penetrate. So we've been using third party vendors for that.
Okay.
Obviously, everybody knows KBB. There's
Yeah.
a couple other vendors that do that as well, that sell you leads for people who want to sell their car versus normally the leads provider that provides you leads for people who want to buy cars.
Exactly.
Now they work fine, but they started not working as good. In the beginning when this was like a new thing, the third party lead providers for private party sellers were a lot more, were had a lot better return on investments. As
Yeah.
time went by, that return on investments kind of definitely went down. It's still there, but it definitely went down. But to me, the biggest problem was at the end of the day, those were still third-party providers.
Yeah.
They own those leads. They can kind of, I guess, manipulate them, sell you as many, or sell them to whoever they want, or they own these leads. They're selling to you. With the campaign that we're running with your help, this is our leads. This is our campaign, our customers, and honestly, surprisingly, the quality is even of the leads was better than those third party leads, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So overall, it was a good move, and I kind of knew that. That's why when you approached me and we started talking, and I was like, okay, you know what? Let's look into this, and we started kind of designing the campaign a little bit and working on it. That was what I had in mind. It's like, hey, let's do our own campaign, and
Yeah.
I knew that somehow this is gonna be better for us, and
Right.
it was. It was.
And so would you say the benefit, I guess, would be from using everybody else's, their first party leads, so no one can resell them off to someone else. You have the only access to them, and that allows you guys to not have to, go against 4 or 5 dealers in the area, because it is pretty tight over there, right? You got a lot of competition. Houston's
Yep.
pretty big. So
Yep.
I guess that would be a benefit, right?
Yeah. 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 Definitely. That's a big benefit. Like I said, successful campaign, man. When we started it, this is typically my attitude when I'm trying typically anything new.
Yeah.
Is I try not to have built too much expectations.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. So I was like, okay, so I was, I was a little skeptical. I was like, okay, let's try it. Just
Right.
to, like I said, we worked on the campaign, we designed it a little bit. So I was like, hey, this could go either way. It could work out or it could not work out. If it doesn't, it's okay. If it works out, great. It worked out. It worked
Yeah.
out. We're buying cars, uh, good cars that we want to buy, good leads. It's a success, man, for sure.
Okay. I love it. Let me ask you this question. If I never met you, right? We never met each other. Where do you think you would be at right now if we never met each other? If we never crossed
Look,
paths.
I'm gonna be honest. So this running my own campaign for private party to attract private party sellers business was on my mind. So I was out to do it. But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm glad I met you. You worked out that you did it. Maybe somebody else it wouldn't have worked out. I will say this. I'm not good at Google Analytics and technical stuff at all. But from what I see and from what I see you do, I can tell that you're very smart. You're really good at what you're doing, and you do it with a good long-term goals in mind. So you're not just trying to. That's a big thing. I'll tell you what I liked about working with you, and that's why I probably wouldn't work with anybody else, and I'd stick to working with you for a long term. Is because you've showed me that you're not just trying to, pump money, bribe me a bunch of leads.
Hmm.
Anybody could do that. Just go pay per lead, buy me a bunch of leads, prove yourself for a couple of months, because you've always actually stayed way under the budget I've given you. Every time I've given you a budget, you've always stayed under the budget. You've told me always like, hey, this is going to take a little longer, but in the long term, it's going to be better.
Yeah.
So to me, that quality that you have is by far the biggest reason why I would recommend your service to anybody.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So you're gonna be like, so you're one of the few vendors that I look at. Every vendor that approaches us and talk to us, they approach us with that, oh, we're partners mentality, right?
Right.
We want you to make money, so we make money, so we keep this long term.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, most of them, it's just talk, and it's just something they say.
Yeah.
But with you, it's a fact.
Right.
That's really how it is. I feel like that's how I look at our relationship as a partner, long-term partner, because you've proved yourself that way.
Right. Now, my experience, just being in the field. I mean, you know a little bit about me.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a benefit? Do you think my experience that I have in the business kind of helps craft the right messaging, the right, being on the right campaigns, making sure we're doing everything effectively, not just because I do marketing for dealers, but because I have the experience that me and you talked about earlier.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I'm sure it plays a big role. You're, running a desk at one of the dealerships, big dealerships. So you're on this side.
Yeah.
You know how the business works on this side, so it definitely helps big time. And when we first started talking designing campaign, we had a little bit of differences. You wanted to kind of point the campaign a certain way and have a certain present it a certain way. I wanted to present it a certain way, and it's not that your way is right or my way is wrong, or I don't think there's a wrong or right here. But we tried a couple different things, and at the end of the day, some of the stuff that you suggested ended up working better. And when it comes to that, I think the proof is in the pudding,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you can come and say, okay, I've worked this, I can do this, or I can design like the way and as you mentioned to me, the way I wanted things presented on paper, it sounds really good, it sounds wonderful, it
Mhm.
sounds like a good idea, but when we applied it, it just for some reason the market response to it was not the same to the way you presented things.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the markets wants what it wants, and at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. And it was whenever we did your right, the leads were rolling in, and they were right amount of leads. So at the end of the day, what works, and
Yeah.
you made it work. And I'm sure your previous experience has a lot to do with it.
Okay. Well, hey man, I appreciate that, Mark. I won't take up
Yeah, man,
too much more of your time. You've
you're
already given
good.
me enough.
All right, put me down on your calendar for next week.